Well, some US allies are questioning America's role in the world and unity among the so-called West. Since Donald Trump came to office, the US has tore up global agreements, pulling out of the Global Climate Accord and major trade pacts, and essentially ripping up the Iran nuclear deal. So what does that mean for the US as a global leader? US Senator Coons is one of the US senators representing the United States at the annual Munich Security Conference. He joins me now to discuss America's global standing during a year when, quote, Westlessness is the major theme. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Thank you, Lynda. Great to be on with you.
I want to ask you first about America's viewing the world, because we know this International Security Conference in Munich has been going on since the 60s every single year. Right now, how do our allies, how do the people you're meeting there view America's trajectory in terms of foreign relations and America's role in the world under the Trump administration?
Well, Lynda, there is literally the largest delegation from Congress that has ever come to this conference. There are dozens of senators and House members. Speaker Pelosi is here, Senators Graham and Whitehouse, and many others who are chairs of full committees in the Senate. And in meeting after meeting with foreign heads of state, foreign ministers, defense ministers, there is a strong theme, a reminder that the United States really is an essential partner to NATO, to the European Union, and to the promotion of our values and interests in the world. It was, I think, valuable for us as a group to be here, to meet with Ashraf Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, to talk about the path forward for Afghanistan, to meet with our European allies from Germany to Norway, to talk about China and 4G, 5G, Huawei, and what's our path forward on security. And then, most importantly, to talk about our support for NATO, something that is broadly bipartisan.
So, Senator, certainly a lot of issues up for discussion. You mentioned some of them as cybersecurity threats, obviously terrorism, climate change, and global pandemics. And this is at a time where we are speaking a lot about the coronavirus. And from the critics, medical experts I've spoken to, there are major concerns about just how prepared the world is to handle a pandemic. I understand you've just been speaking to the World Health Organization's Director General. What are their concerns? What did they say to you?
Well, the United States is already making significant resources available, but frankly, our Center for Disease Control, our CDC, is a world-leading resource, and I think it's important that we actively engage, both with China and with countries around the world, that when the coronavirus gets there, we'll really struggle to have the public health resources and infrastructure to deal with it. I was quite active in the Senate in our response to Ebola 5-6 years ago in West Africa. Partly why that became such a deadly pandemic was that it was in countries that had almost no public health infrastructure because of civil wars in those three core countries in West Africa that were so hard hit by Ebola. What I was just talking to Tedros, the doctor who's the head of the World Health Organization, about is how can we get more of our resources onto the front lines, engaged in this work, so that we can help secure the world from this rapidly expanding pandemic.
And Senator Coons, when it comes to climate change, we've just had another record-breaking month, the hottest January on record for the planet. I have to ask you, how can the world tackle a global crisis like this when the US, which is a major polluter, is stepping back from global accords and has a leader who at rallies holds up signs saying Trump digs coal? There certainly must be a lot of frustration among world leaders there when it comes to trying to deal with this crisis.
There is, Lynda. That's a topic that's come up in virtually every meeting. And a piece of optimism that I'm able to offer is that there is a new bipartisan climate solutions caucus in the Senate that has more than a dozen members, equal numbers Republican and Democrat. We all agree that the climate is changing, that humans are causing that change, and that we need to do something about it. In some of our meetings here, we've conveyed that there are state and city governments, significant governments across our country, that are meeting the Paris climate commitments. But you're right, it is an area of real disagreement between President Trump and many foreign heads of state who wish that we would rejoin the Paris Accord and rejoin a global effort to combat climate change.